Prosecutors are given great power, endless resources to perform their mission of pursuing justice. But that's not what occurred here. What they will bring you is a case that is riddled with reasonable doubt, that is founded on an incompetent and incomplete investigation, and the exercise of poor judgment at every turn. The state cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt the allegations that they have made. And there is a reason for that. You recall Ms. Bradley, some of you may recall, during jury selection, going to great lengths to let you know that she does not have to prove motive. And she's right about that. The law doesn't require her to prove motive. But you know what does require motive? A young man to wake up one day and decide that he's going to kill two of his best friends. Best friends that he grew up with, best friends that he hangs out with, best friends who he lives with, best friends whose careers he was trying to launch alongside his own. They have no reason for why he would do this, because there is no reason. And if there's no reason, it doesn't make sense. And if after 4 years of investigation, the state comes and says, hey, he killed two of his friends, his best friends, and you're wondering why, and their answer is, oh, I don't know. That's the first indication that they're just guessing and don't know what they're talking. And that, ladies and gentlemen, by itself is reasonable doubt. Why he would commit such a heinous crime against his own two best friends for no reason. What happened here is that the lead detective, Detective Moretti, saw a video of Mr. Demons getting into a car 40 plus minutes before bodies were found in that car. And then he discovered that Mr. Demons was a rising star. And from that point on, he decided he's the only person that could have committed this crime. Because if you're involved in prosecuting a star, you become a star. This was his big break. And he had tunnel vision, and he zeroed in on this person, this young man, as the only possible perpetrator of that crime, to the exclusion of all other leads and evidence. There's a difference between cases that are investigated and cases that are fabricated. When a case is investigated, the state uses all its resources, its investigators, its experts, and all its energy to identify leads and run them to ground. When a case is fabricated, first a target is chosen, and then the state uses all its resources, its investigators, its experts, and its energy to run that target into the ground. That's what occurred here, and there's a reason why I say that. There are a number of leads that you will discover that were identified by the officers but were either completely ignored or given short shrift. I'm going to let you know, run through a few of them by way of example. Start with the most obvious one. Cortland Henry. Now, Ms. Bradley started her opening statement by describing some of the lies that he told, as though to impute them to Mr. Demons. Those were not Mr. Demons' lies, those were his lies. Cortland Henry shows up at Memorial Hospital, Miramar. You don't see him sitting there, but where you will see him sitting is in the driver's seat of a car with 2 dead bodies, a car riddled with bullets. And when he shows up with a change of clothing, change of shirt, gunpowder residue on his hands, evidencing that he had discharged a firearm. And he lies. He lies about where the incident occurred. He lies about how it occurred. And he lies about not having a phone. I think it was Miss Bradley herself who said, everybody has a phone in his pocket, not Cortland Henry. There were 3 phones in that car. There were 3 people in that car. So they take him at his word, despite suspicious circumstances, and they let him go on his way. They soon discover that he's lying about the location of this incident, and they went back to him, and they label him a victim. And they said, we know you're scared. Tell us what happened. He lies to them again. They let him go. And they know where he went. They know the location that he went. They know the house that he went to right after. And any investigator worth his salt would have thought to maybe execute a search warrant on that location to see if you find any bloody clothes, any DNA, any blood, a weapon maybe. You guys are probably familiar with the series First 48. That's founded on the proposition that if you botch an investigation within the first 48 hours, you've pretty much botched it for good. It's 48 months plus later. They still haven't served a search warrant on that location. Why? Moretti already had his man. What's the point of an investigation? To find out what happened. He's using all his resources to try and prove what he has already concluded did happen. So, after Cortland Henry, lead number 2, a gentleman named Montrell Roll, and his sister, Nia Hewitt. Who are they? Well, another police department came into possession of jail calls between those two that occurred within 3 days after the murders, and discussed what they describe as intimate details of the murders. Intimate details means details that are not in the public domain. So 3 days after, these two people are discussing the details of a murder. They go out and interview Miss Hewitt. They don't interview Mr. Roll. And they ask her, well, how did you know all these intimate details? Oh, I heard it, something to the effect of I had word on the street. Doesn't say when she heard it. Doesn't say who she heard it from. Case closed. They move on. That's lead number 2. That was ignored. Then there's Robert Colbert. Who is he? He is a gentleman that owns a social media account by the name of Backwards. This social media account, almost immediately, within days after these murders, posts this message: LOL, we killed 2 of your niggas. Oh, really? Took him 7 months to go and talk to Mr. Colbert, the owner of this account, that posts what amounts to an unequivocal confession to involvement in that murder, in those murders. 7 months. Why? Moretti already had his guy. And when they go and talk to Mr. Colburn, what does he say? He said, oh, I created that account and I sold it for $20 to somebody else. Who'd you sell it to? Oh, I can't remember. Were you at the murder scene? No. Did you do it? No. Case closed. That's it. No more investigation. It would occur to a reasonable person, let alone a seasoned investigator acting in good faith. Why would somebody buy an Instagram account when you can create one for free on your own? If not to hide your identity. And if somebody goes to the trouble of buying an Instagram account to hide their identity and then confesses to a murder that you're investigating, maybe you ought to go and figure out who that person is and talk to them. And maybe there is no such person. Maybe it was not sold. Why would somebody create an Instagram account and sell it for $20? And if he's in the business of doing that, that's of interest. And how would anybody know to go to him to buy an Instagram account? These are all unanswered questions. No investigation. Case closed. Let's move on. David Hedgepath. Who is he, you might wonder? He had a Twitter account called Crucial Almighty. He posts a confession to this murder. Something to the effect of, we coming at that Jeep. Can't remember the quote. You're going to hear about it. And essentially it was a confession to involvement in the murders. It took them 1.5 years to go and talk to him. They knew about it 1.5 years earlier. It took them 1.5 years to go and talk to him. Why do you do that unless you've already concluded that you know who committed the crime, you've already determined who your defendant will be? And when they go to this young man and ask him, well, actually before, this is 1.5 years before, they said, oh, we've determined that he was just trying to start an internet beef to advance his career. Who told him that? Without talking to a soul. So it took him 1.5 years to go down there and track him down. And when they do go and track him down, they say, hey, did you commit the murder? No. Were you in the area? No. Where were you? Well, I could have been at work. At work where? Any one of 3 places. Okay, could you give me a work schedule? As though that would prove anything. He says, well, I can get it now. Oh, no, don't worry about it. Just email it to me. Really? And he doesn't even do that. There is no report that he even follows up and sends them an email of this mysterious work schedule proving that he wasn't at the location. They conclude, oh, he's not there, wasn't him, case closed. Is that how we do this now? That's not all. There are several other people who are potential suspects who were not tracked down. You are going to hear about them during the course of this trial. But beyond that, 3 years after arresting this young man and sticking him in a cell, the state looks at its case and says, oh man, this looks a little incompetent. Miramar police seems to have botched this investigation, and they call the Broward Sheriff's Office and ask them to come and look at the investigation upon which this entire prosecution rests. And he looks at it, and he says he instantly knew he had to start from scratch. I think his words were, it was the worst thing I had seen in my life. This is the Broward Sheriff's Office evaluating the work product of the Miramar Police Department. And we have problems with the Broward Sheriff's Office redo as well, but you're going to hear about that during the course of this trial. Ladies and gentlemen, the murder of anybody and the murder of these 2 young men was a tragedy. You're not here to solve a crime. That's their job, and they have watched it. Jurors often get confused as to their mission. You can't do a job unless you know what that job is. Every civil society needs to have a prosecutorial arm prosecuting crimes and offenses. That's a noble pursuit. There's nothing wrong with that. And every country does it. In some countries, the prosecutor decides who the person is, they send a cop to go arrest him, they throw him in jail, that's the end of it. We don't do that in this country. What we do is we ask, are you sure about what you're talking about? That's the purpose of this proceeding. You're not here to judge Mr. Demons. You're here to judge the sufficiency of the state's case. That is your assignment. You're not here for a show to see who you like more. There are 2 grades, beyond a reasonable doubt and not guilty. A+, everything else is a F. There's no A's, there's no A minuses. You are akin to an FDA lab. Imagine a company saying, we're going to put on the market fat-free milk. And the lab, their mission is to determine whether or not there is fat in the milk. And what do they look for? They don't look for milk. They look for fat. The state is telling you they have a state that is free of reasonable doubt. You're not here looking for proof. You're here looking for doubt. And if you're off looking for the wrong thing, you're going to miss what you are here to look for. They have no motive. Their entire case is hinged upon the technology of a phone they claim to have been in Mr. DeMons' possession. What they fail to tell you is that they have come across evidence that Mr. DeMons got out of that car before this incident. They ignore that because it's not consistent with their feet. What they fail to tell you is that phone comes back to the name of somebody other than Jamal Demons. What they forgot to tell you is that their own witness will tell you that yes, that phone and Mr. Williams' phone and a number of other phones were all on the same account, and all of the people in the house used to use them interchangeably. But they're assigning it to him because that is consistent with their theories. They don't follow leads. They have no motive. Investigation was botched. The investigation, as a matter of fact, is still going on as we speak, up to a couple months ago. Yet they're here telling you they have proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and what you're still investigating for. The job of the state is to prove it beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. And if you're a reasonable person and you have doubt, that's reasonable doubt. There's a song called Things That Make You Go, If you say, that's reasonable doubt. You do not. Ms. Bradley is charming. She's good at her job in some respects. But this is not a popularity contest. We don't give, hey, good effort. We don't give participation awards. This man's life is hanging in the balance. And if there is a scintilla of reasonable doubt, you must have the courage to speak up and say so. You're not here to judge him. You're here to judge the sufficiency of their case. They have a big task in front of them. We should probably get to it.